Hi, this is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast, where CEOs, CMOs, and communications experts share their real advice. It's 6 questions under 9 minutes because we get to it real fast. So let's get to it. Please welcome today's guest. In a few sentences, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Anna. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Matt Frye, and I am a self-described, I call myself a payments geek. So I've been in fintech business for 20 plus years and recently founded a new company here in Dallas called CardNow.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you joining us today. Really excited to connect with you.
Thank you very much.
Matt, what would you say is the best thing about being a leader in your industry?
Well, fintech is very fast-paced. Lots of innovation. I've had the pleasure of working in lots of different businesses in payments, card processing, banks, etc. And the one constant is the speed. And I really enjoy building and working in a very innovative industry, and fintech certainly gives me that.
Nice. I love that. Matt, I hear from other successful executives that creating authentic connections, whether it's your team or your customers or vendors, partners, et cetera, can be challenging, especially given all the noise today. I'd love to hear your take on that.
There certainly is a lot of noise today. And, I think the number one thing, well, you can give them a gift card, which would be interesting. That would be, the number one thing for me is dedicating time. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the customer, certainly, but also the employee. To have those authentic connections and those conversations, you have to dedicate time set aside to actually listen to what the staff is doing, listen to everybody in the organization at every level, certainly the customer. There's lots of tools for that, but there's nothing, I think, that replaces an actual conversation. But if you don't dedicate the time, especially now, motivations are shifting constantly. You need to be able to understand what your team is reacting to, what they're saying out there, and hopefully you can turn that into positive action.
I love that. And you're so right. I was just chatting with someone this morning about each week seeming like a month or a quarter at times, because so many things are shifting and, there's just a lot going on. So I feel like that's great advice. Is there any other real tangible advice that you can share with other leaders? Anything else that you think is really important?
Well, I think maybe this has shifted a little bit in the last 6 months or so, but it's, my primary advice is probably flexibility, adaptability, for anybody running a company, certainly, but at all levels of the company. If you can build in flexibility, adaptability in the roles, the responsibilities, how you solve problems, how you actually interact with the customers, certainly. And I'm not talking about pivoting necessarily, just based on market forces, but really building in a culture of it's okay to test, learn, fail, and repeat. And if you can have that sort of iterative structure throughout the organization, then you're able to probably implement small changes that can really have a big impact in the long run. The authentic discussions that we talked about a second ago, that's part of it for me. Actually, in a small organization, startups are very small, lots of people wearing lots of hats. If you're not constantly having discussions with everyone about what it is that we're doing as a company, why we're doing it, what their role is, those are great opportunities to learn about opportunities to improve and make those little tweaks. It's not, you don't have to steer the tanker all the way around. I always like to say that you can just point it a couple degrees in a different direction. And in the long run, those things pay off and you can implement a lot of small changes over time. So it's flexibility, adaptability, which is, pretty basic, but you can force that into a culture, not just a business practice.
Mm-hmm. No, but that's a great reminder. There are some things that leaders can take their eye off of because they're focused on other things. And so it's critical that, and I think your advice is really sound about being flexible, about being adaptable, having those conversations, really listening and, actively listening and hearing things that may not even be mentioned and being in that way. So that's fantastic. Thank you. All right. Before our final question, are there any other successful executives, such as yourself, that you would like to give a shout out to or believe should be on this podcast?
Well, there's lots of people that I admire. I think the one person that comes to mind, Talbot Roche. She's the CEO and president of Blackhawk Network. One of the companies that I co-founded many years ago. Blackhawk actually bought that, and I got to work with her and the team there. And she's a rock star. You talk about having conversations, meaningful, authentic conversations at all levels of the organization. That's her superpower. I don't know how she does it in such a big company. She's very successful at it. And then I'll give you one more gentleman by the name of Will Sowell. He's here in Dallas. I met him when he was COO at Green Dot, and he's a former military guy. He served in public office as well. He's a great team builder. And he's a friend and a mentor. So I really admire Will. I think a lot of people would love to hear from him.
That's great. Yeah, I'd love to connect with him. So I'll learn more about you after this podcast. Thank you.
Great.
All right. Our final question is more of a fun one because I always love to hear where people get started. So can you tell us about your first job?
I don't know if I can legally talk about my first job because I was like 14 and I worked at a golf course, driving golf carts down from where we plugged them in and charged them and brought them down to the golfers at the golf course in Florida. So when I was in junior high. But the real job that I tell people that is a restaurant business. I was in the restaurant business for many years. I was bartending through college, and then I got into management. I ended up owning a restaurant with a couple friends, and we've always in my business life after restaurants always found the opportunity to bring people in from that business because it's so fast paced, and there's the ability to interact with so many different personalities and rinse and repeat. 24 hours later, it's the same thing all over again, and you got to be on your A game. And I've always found lots of people successful from that industry moving into other things. So
those are great.
Enjoyed that time and enjoyed connecting with those people today too.
Yep. No, and you're so right. Those jobs, and funny you say, you were 14. A lot of the CEOs I've been talking to have started very early and also very different jobs, right, that got them to where they are today. But there's really nothing quite like the hospitality industry when you have the customer right there and you've got to solve problems right there. And they're always right. Unless nowadays, maybe with the whole mask thing, they're not always right. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah. Very cool. Well, how can people get a hold of you?
So the business is Card Now, and we just kicked it off about a month ago. My email is matt.frye@cardnow.com, CARDNOW, and I'm on LinkedIn under Payments Guru. You can find me there. But I look forward to connecting with more folks. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. This is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast. For more insights, visit us at crowepr.com. Thanks so much and make it a great day.